what's going on, Belle Fleur, Gwen the Recovering Witch here, also known as Jen. Welcome to my channel and welcome to this video. This is Mindful Recovery Monday and I have not done one of these in some time. It's been several months, but I am so excited to dive back into the Pagan and Recovery book after my first video of coming back and explaining where I've been. And so when I was putting this video together for you guys, I'm kind of glad that we are covering step 6 because that's where I really have been in the last several months. So before we dive in, I would ask you if you could please like this video, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell. So today is Mindful Recovery Mondays, so if you are new to this channel, I am going back and covering the Pagan and Recovery book by Deirde Anne Hebert. I have my other videos that have been set up before I took my little hiatus, and now I'm back. So I'm excited to go back in with you guys and dive into this book and get back into my 12-step literature. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I did say with step 6, it really did come in a perfect time after I did step 5 with my sponsor. And I really do feel like I have been sitting at step 6 since June. My sponsor and I, we did finish my 5th step in June. I do need to get in touch with her about finishing up step 6 and just kind of telling her where I'm at right now with that. And step 6 out of the Pagan and Recovery book is we're entirely ready to effect, with the help of deity, a profound change in our character. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, step 6 is written as we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character or higher power. I have to say that this is actually the shortest step in Alcoholics Anonymous, the big book. And honestly, Hebert, she did a really fantastic job with listing everything out for step 6 in a couple pages. But even then, like, her explanation, it is detailed, but step 6 is very short. But it is a very difficult step, and also the step of realizations of things, and a very essential step. If you would like to really dive into step 6 and maybe get some more literature, I would recommend picking up the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions that's typically used in the rooms of recovery and Alcoholics Anonymous, and that does go into further detail. I did think about, as I'm kind of putting all of this together, if I wanted to do kind of like what I have as far as my notes on step 6 with the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. I may go back and do that another day. I was thinking about putting it after this one, but I really do want to finish this book. Quite honestly, with the big book, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, and the way that it's outlined in Hebert's book, it all kind of matches up with the same idea and concept. But again, the openness as far as spirituality goes is very different, and the wording as far as the wording in step 6 is different. I cannot talk, y'all. I'm so sorry. Should have probably done this on a Wednesday. It's a Thursday. Day of communication. Okay. But I do love how step 6 is phrased in the Pagan and Recovery book. It is relatable to me. How I have acknowledged my weaknesses and my strengths out in steps 4 and 5. And I am taking ownership. And with the information that I know about me and what my strengths and my weaknesses are, I can integrate the two. And within that, I learn about humility. So when I learn about that, I'm able to move forward with my life and try to do better. And what is it that I am desiring to be moving forward, like the person that I want to be. When I look at step 6 in the traditional AA room, being willing for God to remove all these defects of character, My personal thing is I don't like referring to them as defects of character because I am built the way that I am. I have noticed lately I have been saying a lot as far as people reaching out either for emotional support or something, that I am allowed to feel the way that I feel. But what I am responsible for is the action I take after, or the steps I take after. That, I feel like it does resonate with step 6 a lot, and that a piece of advice I have heard in the rooms of AA, and that has stuck with me again for some time. I do appreciate the fact with this path that I'm on in my spirituality, I am taking ownership and I'm taking responsibility. And we would think as common sense, any human being we would. And sometimes, depending on the situations, we might want to scapegoat and not take the responsibility. But I would prefer to do so because, again, I want to be better. I'm not trying to achieve perfectionism, but I am trying to do my best and be a better person than what I was before. It did seem like with that phrasing of out of AA, as far as God removing all these defects of character, the higher power is not going to do it. We have to have some sort of willingness and take some sort of actions. Willingness is actually an action. And it's kind of like we're meeting halfway. So either deity is going to be here and I'm going to be here and we come together. My matron, the Morgan, she's not going to do it all for me, obviously. And granted, people who follow her and are devoted, y'all know. She don't do it for you. She shoves you right in. Okay. Look at it with step 5, knowing what your strengths and your weaknesses are and sitting with them, but not in morbid reflection, and really looking at, here is where I know my weaknesses are and where's my strengths, and what I can do to make my weaknesses my strengths also. Again, we're talking about integrating them. And what happens, or what I have, I guess after reflection of this, it's almost like a renewed sense of hope or strength that I can move forward, and kind of having that motivation, like, yeah, I'm really going to work and do this deal and I'm going to change my life around. Step 6 is all about willingness, and we are seeking an earnest desire that we will bring about transformation in our lives. So I'm going to read a little bit of Hebert's book in regards to energy and in regards to step 6. And she says, each step either prepares us, raises energy, or directs energy. And finally, as we shall see, if we complete them, in the last step, we will ground ourselves through our work with others. Step 6 is one in which energy is raised for use in the following step. The amount of energy that we permit ourselves to raise through the act of becoming entirely ready to experience a transformative change will have a direct impact on our ability to experience that change. The tool of choice in step 6 is meditation. And mindful meditation is so important. Any spiritual path or whatever, spiritual mindfulness or anything really, even for breathing, meditation is key and so important with the traditional recovery program and any of the other branches. Again, we're following the same steps. Meditation is key because we are practicing mindfulness. And what is mindfulness? So I really wanted to get a definition and really look at that word. And so this was out of the Oxford Language Dictionary, and the two definitions are the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. And the second one is, it's a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, bodily sensations, and it's used in a therapeutic technique. Okay? So this is what we are doing here with all these steps. If you think about it, she mentions about the raising the energy, grounding as far as helping others. We are directing the energy as far as looking at it as like magical works. But these are all techniques. This is what it is. With the willingness and practicing mindful meditation, this is where the transformation begins. If we think about it, for those in recovery and for us in the recovery community as a collective answer, or that's probably not the best term, but as far as a collective concept is what I'm trying to say. We've been willing since we walked into the rooms of AA, okay? Even though we didn't want to go, we knew that we didn't really have any other choice. Again, maybe some of us were either forced into rehab, some not, but we knew somewhere deep down, like maybe the rooms of recovery was not the place where we wanted to be, but it's where we needed to be. And so when we sit in our first meeting, okay, then we are faced with step one. Why are we here? If I don't think my life is unmanageable, then I wouldn't be in the rooms of recovery. And my life was unmanageable. And I could not stop drinking. So I was powerless. I admitted that I was powerless. But when I am saying that I'm powerless, I am willing to say that I'm powerless and my life had become unmanageable. So me just walking in and acknowledging and accepting step one for what it was, I had to come to a willingness to know that, yes, like this is me, and getting my brain to truly understand. And we do it through all the steps, actually, because if we really have that desire to stop drinking, which I did, I listened, and so I continued with the steps. There's willingness on step 4 when we're doing our inventory, and the willingness of step 5 to share that with someone and also share it with deity. That's the things I am mindful of, and I think about where willingness came in, and I had that willingness and the desire to stop drinking. And I've noticed there's I constantly fight with willingness every single day of my life. And I will get to that part in just a few minutes, and where you can probably find the relatable with that. I remember, as far as the willingness, when I looked at everything, I remember in my first year, I was willing to do anything to stop drinking because, again, my life was unmanageable. It could be common to hear, I know it was common for me, but, and I like to say this to you guys too, is that what I give is a suggestion, okay? And you can take this suggestion or not. There's nothing that I can do about it. So I looked at it in the same perspective in my first year of going to the meeting, going to my second meeting, getting a sponsor. I was willing to get a sponsor. When I was told if I was having a hard day, the willingness to pick up the phone and talk to somebody about it, because sometimes the phone does weigh about 500 pounds. Also, the days that I did feel like it was just rough, and I still have those days where they're rough. The willingness to either go to a meeting, the times where I did not know what I may have would do after in my first year of sobriety. I stayed at the clubhouse and I stayed at the meetings all day, and very early in my sobriety, because I didn't know how to be accountable for myself if I left, but I was trying my best to hold on. So I tried to volunteer where I could, whether if it was volunteering to clean on the weekend, being supportive as far as when it came to time of leading or chairing a meeting, and getting myself involved so I could get outside of self. So what was I willing to do to ensure that I didn't have to drink that day? And here we are 4 years later, still trucking along. All of this required a conscious effort on my part as far as me to change my behavior instead of reverting to old behaviors. I love how Hebert makes examples so relatable in her book. It's definitely a big change from the old text. So she gives many examples, but the one that I loved was about those that are training for marathons where they participate. And that was very relatable for me because at a time, I did participate. I did half marathons and I did participate in a full marathon. She goes on to saying that there is this conscious willingness that as a runner, which is true, there is time and dedication of what we're going to put our body to go through in the schedule that we are willing to train before we actually make it to the big race day. I wanted to share that story with you guys because it's still a little hard, and I just noticed while I was writing the notes down to stay on topic, I noticed I got a little emotional about it because it's still a part of the ego and I still go back and forth with it. So here in Houston, we have the Houston Chevron Marathon, and I participated, I guess it was 2016 then. And so again, I was already actively running. I started out with 5Ks, running and walking, and then eventually trying to run the whole thing. And then I ventured out and trying to do half marathons just to get the miles in. And that was really working quite a bit. So I was doing really good and I was staying fit, and I had this goal in mind that this is what I want to do. Race day comes and I am a ball full of nerves because I really want to finish. Yes, I do run the marathon. I do go at my own pace. I try to run faster, but I am not faster than a speeding bullet. Okay, I'm not Superwoman. But I am Superwoman in some way. There was a lot that I could remember as far as the weather conditions, the cones being pulled off early on the course. I got lost with another person. I saw somebody collapse as far as like the first mile. When I made it to mile 13, when I finally got back on track, I think I probably never mind. I think I actually went like a mile off, and yeah, that was no fun. But there was a young lady, she was at mile 13 and I'm with someone and we're trying to finish, and she had a blown out knee. She was injured. And I remember seeing a lot of people just stopping because it was just too much. And I still had that motivation to keep going. And I was even trying to get outside myself to not be alone and try to make a friend in all this too, and try to support somebody to push through. And it was just kind of like the battle of the wills at that point. And I had to kind of make this decision of well, this is the thing that I wanted to do. I tried to get outside of myself. I feel like I'm being carried down, and I have to move forward. Well, to make a long story short, I didn't finish. And I was actually the last person that was still on the course. And I had one gentleman who gave me a bottle of water. He said, "Hey, you're almost there, keep going." I think I was probably about 7 or 8 miles away. And that kind of helped me kind of push through, and I was still trying. Then shortly after him, there was a gentleman with the bus. It was a shuttle bus. If you didn't want to finish, you could get on. And the lady that I was with, and she just wanted to quit. She was already on the bus, and she was just like, "Hey, come on, it's okay, just come in." And I really didn't want to, but I was kind of faced with that thing of well, if I keep going, is the finish line not going to be there when I get there, and am I not going to get my medal? Because I wanted my medal. And so I ended up getting on the bus and crying, because I cried because it was a lot of effort. Again, these races, for some people, it's not a whole lot of money, but it was a lot of money for me, and trying to participate. So again, it's very grueling, and it's a very conscious effort on your part, the lengths you're willing to go to in order to accomplish things. And I was sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, maybe I should try it again one more time. But it's me not so much doing my ego on trying to prove to my older self and being in competition with me. I just, one, I know I need to get back into shape, and I know it's for my health, and also it does make me feel good, and it's something for me, not to prove to anybody else. And I really don't know what was driving me to do it to begin with, but I think my mindset was really not in that place of where this is for me to prove to myself, but I don't know, to prove to everyone, which really was not healthy. So that's why I gave up running for some time and moved on to other things. But again, there might be a chance where I go back, but it is a very committed effort on doing this. Before we close out to this step and move on to the practical application and the ritual, Hebert does write that we all need to make a decision and come to a state of willingness before we are able to achieve anything. The task at hand with step 6 is the readiness to experience transformation. If we wish to avail ourselves of this opportunity, we must extend our hand as well and take ownership of which is offered. That is the essence of willingness as it applies in step 6. And I tell you, even with just the application and me telling you that whole line of story of the marathon, like I really did a lot of self-reflection with that. And again, even for me now, how it pertains to the person that I was then, what's the length that I'm willing to go if I want to do this? And am I willing to do this? And who do I desire to be? And that question does come up here instead of, you know, what do I do or what do I want to do? Sometimes being hit with the humility stick is good for you. Hebert uses the example of driving a car. I got another example for that too. So if we get behind the wheel of a car, we become willing to accept the responsibility and the consequences for doing so. Currently right now with my niece, sometimes that we are spending together, I am teaching her how to drive. It's fun teaching a teenager and scary at the same time. With that, I am taking the responsibility that I am not of control of the car, but she is. And if something were to happen, then I have to basically take on the consequences for agreeing and being willing to do this if something does happen. Knock on wood, but I am very much helicopter mom, quote unquote. What Hebert does try to point out in this is that sometimes we try to find a way to weasel ourselves out of the responsibility. And when we fail to take into account the possibility of changing conditions, is in itself a choice, and it is a choice that many of us make relatively often. So I will have to say, because I do have a lot on my plate right now, and because I've said yes to anything, willing to help or whatever, and I noticed, like, I've been trying to like take a break or kind of cut off some things, and how my mind is trying to weasel out of things after I've made the commitment. So I had to look at, why was I willing to do it in the first place? Was it ego? Was it to prove to somebody or get back at them and whatever? And you know what? Yeah, because I'm human. I still have to take on the responsibility or be honest, come clean or whatever, and you know, and I have to check my motives. I do have to check my motives. And all of this in steps 4 and 5, we do realize we do have a motive in certain things, and again, that's where humility comes in. It's not for us to make ourselves feel bad. It's just to realize that we're neither right or we're neither wrong. It's to put us in this state of neutrality of, well, yeah, it didn't work out this way. I do see my part here. So what can I do to improve? We require the willingness to experience growth and positive change. And for many of us, it's the first time in our lives where we've asked ourselves who it is I desire to be, rather than what do I want to do. It's pretty plain and simple. We end this portion, and she ends with, we do not change who we are until we are willing to do so. this ritual I really feel like is something anybody could do. And well, anybody could do, but I know, granted, sometimes it's hard, especially now, and depending on what our living situation is, whether we're parents or whatever, it might be hard to have some time alone. And so when that happens, we don't really have time to kind of practice the mindful meditation because we're being pulled in so many ways. However, we are trying to find the willingness to do this also, okay? And any of the rituals out of this book. This is a full day ritual, and what she's asking you to do is have a full day to yourself that is quiet, and what you are doing is observing your behaviors. You may be able to get away with this even if you can't be alone. I have noticed that how it applies when I'm living with other people, again, my husband. And what is my willingness from the moment that I open my eyes? Am I going to get out of bed, or am I going to hit the snooze button? Okay, I am observing my behaviors throughout this entire day. All right. And also she does ask that maybe you want to get your lunch ready, so that way you can prepare to have it by yourself, because again, you're consciously being aware of the choices you're making and what you're doing and how it makes you feel. So I did mention about waking up. Are you gonna get out of bed, hit the snooze button? Are you willing to go take a shower, or willing to check your work emails or social media? Am I willing to eat a healthy breakfast or skip it altogether? So every action that I take through this day, I am observing my willingness of my activities of improvement. And I'm noticing, again, overall, I'm noticing my willingness on wanting to do. So I did put in here in my notes, like the laundry example. I don't know if it's relatable to most people, but maybe it will be. I have loads of laundry that are clean, and I don't mind sorting. I have to find the willingness to sort, and when I do, it gets done. Then I have the willingness to carry the bins down the stairs to the laundry room and put them in the washer and the dryer. My willingness, however, where I lack is actually folding the clothes and putting them away. All right. Can anybody relate? So, so I have to observe those behaviors and ask myself the question of, well, what is my willingness level? Like, is it there or is it just not? What does it feel like to me? Does it feel like it's just not a labor of love? The clothes are going to get dirty anyway, you know, really talking myself out of not doing them. And what it looks like in order to discover that willingness is becoming real or tangible. Maybe if I look at it like this, that maybe if I just do one of the loads at a time to fold, because now they're just kind of like piled on bed sheets or something, just to keep it all together. Working on one basket at a time and folding it, and not having to think about doing it all day, so I can move on to something else, and looking at it as more so it will get done versus like I just don't want to deal with you. And so I'm going to close out with the last paragraph here. It says that you have now discovered the hidden secret that is key at the solution to the vexing difficulty of wanting to want. That feeling that was so key to urging each of us toward what we were all looking for when we first realized that our lives had become unmanageable. You have finally found that the pathway to willingness is not through fate or chance. It's not something that is attainable to those fortunate few, but it is something that is ultimately under your own control. You have held the keys all along, and you no longer need to search for them. At the end of the day, you can conclude the ritual of mindfulness by closing your eyes and willing a peaceful slumber. That concludes step 6, and I really am glad that it happened the way that it did for me to cover it this month, and finding clues of what Spirit has been trying to tell me about certain things. And I am observing right now that sometimes my willingness is just not there, and it does need to be. Back into the 12 steps and 12 traditions, I do believe no is the most powerful word you can use, because again, I have learned boundaries in the rooms, but we'll talk about boundaries later. And if I say no or never, then I've automatically closed my mind off to not be willing to do the thing that may be beneficial for me later down the line or better improvement. So that is what I need to be mindful of. And I did want to point out to you guys before I close this out, I did have someone, when I was in my first year, I went to another meeting that wasn't my home group, and someone that was leading the meeting, he asked the question as far as what are the 3 key pieces for being successful in this program. And this is page 567 in the big book, and this is the spiritual experience. I highly recommend you read this, and again, have an open mind to it. Almost to the last paragraph before it is a quote by Herbert Spencer. I'm getting confused with the two. It says, "We will find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable." So guys, I will leave you with that, and please don't forget to like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. Where are you at with your steps? Please, I would like for this to be engaging. Again, build the community here. There's a lot of people that have reached out and have asked as far as where the meetings I have been attending online. When I haven't been attending them a lot lately, but I can refer you to where you need to go. And yeah, but again, let's try to build a community here. And I do want to say, it has been rattling around in my brain, that, and it's coming in very strongly, that there needs to be a Pagan and Recovery meeting here locally, if we are able to meet in person soon. Again, we can meet, but it might not be the case depending how things go, but that is in the works for me and what I am deciding to do to fulfill my purpose and be of service. So again, please reach out, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and let us know where you are. And if you need to reach out for the support, have the willingness to. So I suggest you try it out. So until next time, guys, be well. Bye.